This is Richard Nickel, the jazz rabbi from beautiful Needham, Massachusetts. Why the jazz rabbi? What does jazz have to do with being a rabbi? Well, aside from the fact that I just like to play jazz, jazz has a spiritual lesson for us because jazz is the developing of an ad-lib solo, a spontaneous solo based on the chords of a particular song. And that's the way life is. God would have us all write our jazz solo, the jazz solo of our lives, as we respond to one another and as we listen to the chords of His music. So today I'd like to discuss a really important subject with you, and that is how can we be optimistic in a very tough age? Fact of the matter is, as I'm sure you're aware, we do live in a very difficult age. We live in an age when, since the invention of the atomic bomb, mankind has the capacity to annihilate itself. We live at a time of tremendous political disequilibrium, all kinds of problems around the world, and I think that you'll agree with me that many people really wonder, can mankind really work its way out of the level of problems that we face now? And it's a very legitimate question. Well, we all know that it's important to be optimistic no matter what. Pessimistic people have a tougher time in life, and who wants to go around sad all the time? So the question then becomes, how can we remain optimistic given the fact that the amount of problems that the world is facing seem so daunting? Some people would say, well, you just got to choose to be optimistic as kind of an emotional state. You got to psych yourself up because, again, it's not a happy thing to be sad and pessimistic. But the problem there is, what if the facts seem to militate against your being optimistic? What do you do then? What if your heart and your head are not in agreement? It's hard to maintain optimism. Or some people would say, well, the human race has always found its way out of big problems in the past. It will again. And we'd have to admit this may be true. But then again, I think that many of us wonder if that's really true this time around. The problems may be just too great this time around to work our way out of. The trajectory doesn't seem to be in that way. Well, I'd like to give you a basis for optimism, one that I think really is rooted in reality, and I'd like to share with you from the sources of that optimism, which for us as a synagogue come from two very special places, one from our tradition and one from the Bible. Now I should mention that the synagogue I represent, Congregation Ruach Israel, is a Messianic Jewish synagogue, and what that means is we're serious Jews. We do all the things that Jews are supposed to do as those who really care about our lives as Jewish people. But we, unlike the majority of synagogues in the United States, we affirm that Jesus, the historical Jesus, is the Messiah and that He has a lot to say about optimism. We like to call Him Yeshua, and so I'll use His Hebrew name, Yeshua, as I speak to you. So let's begin with our Jewish tradition, and I'm going to be reading a little bit from a prayer which is very, very common in the Jewish liturgy. As a matter of fact, we say it every day, and we say it on Shabbat. In fact, it's the concluding major prayer of all major Jewish services, and it's called the Aleinu. And the prayer ends like this. It's very triumphant. It asks, God, reign over us soon and for all time. Sovereignty is yours now and forever. Thus it is written in your Torah, Adonai shall reign forever and ever. Well, what's the idea here? The idea is simply that we are confident that although man may not be able to get himself out of the hole he's dug for himself, God promises that ultimately all will be well. He promises that one day He's going to reign on this world. It's hard to imagine, but that's something we believe to be very, very true. That He is going to make everything right in the end. As I explained when we were together last week, this doesn't cause us to feel that we can just ignore life's problems and to just pretend that things are just hunky-dory when they're not. No, we have obligations to make the world a better place. But in the final analysis, it's His doing. It's His purpose. in this world that will stand, and he promises that we will not annihilate ourselves, that we will not succumb to global warming that will turn the whole earth into a nuclear winter, but instead he's going to make things A-OK. Now, our source from the Bible comes from a very famous passage commonly called the Sermon on the Mount, and that is that here Yeshua, Jesus, in his role as a kind of Moses figure, sitting on a mountain teaching his disciples, which reminds us of Moses going up on the mountain and receiving the Torah. He says this. I'll read it in Hebrew. He probably spoke this in Hebrew or Aramaic, but you'll get the feel of how it sounded to his earliest followers. Ashrei ha'aneyei haruach ki lahem malchut hashamayim. Truly happy, truly fulfilled are the poor of spirit, because to them belongs the kingdom of heaven. Now, the kingdom of heaven is the same rule of God that the Elenu spoke about. But here he says, truly happy are the people who are spiritually poor or poor of spirit. And why would people be poor of spirit? Because they look around themselves and they see a world that's in such disarray. Or perhaps in their own personal lives, in our own personal lives, we face issues, we face problems. And people who are poor of spirit tend to really yearn for something beyond. And God says here through the Messiah, something beyond is really coming. All will be well. As a matter of fact, you're going to inherit the very kingdom of God when it does appear in this world. Well, I'm going to get back to the boys and play some jazz, but let me leave you with this happy thought. May the ad-lib solo of your life become beautiful as you listen to the notes that he would have you play. So, from all of the cool people at Congregation Ruach Israel, shalom, and come visit us. Visit our website. We'd love to get to know you better and for you to get to know us better too.